Hi, everyone. Thanks for the download. I'm Tim, and joining me today is my podcast partner, Anthony Kepley, and my high school and James Dotson from Western Pennsylvania. He and I are actually covering Newcastle basketball all season long. So he has a great roots in that area. He did high school football this past year with a former partner of mine, Lee Moan. And he also is part of the Trib Live High School Sports Network. We're going to get at all that. Plus, we're going to talk sports like we always do here. For myself, want to talk about Anthony and I are huge YSU Penguin fans.
Yep.
As I mentioned before, Anthony is a Saint and a Crusader by education, but a Penguin by heart.
That's right.
I am a Penguin by education and heart. And we love talking Northeast Ohio, Western Pennsylvania stuff here. So we're going to get into the Steelers too, because, oh my God, all my Steelers fans, I think, are having a heart attack last Sunday.
Tim, we're still talking about it. You're seeing it everywhere.
Exactly.
It's not going away.
Oh, no.
Enough is enough.
And it's going to be fun.
Catch, no catch, doesn't even matter anymore. It really doesn't.
It's fun.
But we'll debate it, right?
Yeah, no, we're absolutely going to debate it. And I'll give you my point of view on that here in a moment. And obviously, Anthony, being the Bronco fan that he is, he's like me, can't wait for the season to end. Osweiler.
He's our hero. He's going to save us from the depths of
a Cleveland reject goes back home and becomes a hero.
That's right.
What is thought?
Yeah,
I feel like I've heard that one before.
Yeah. And we'll get into some high school basketball as James, like I mentioned, and I will have a game tomorrow night as Blackhawk Newcastle to take them on in high school basketball. So we're going to get into that and a few other things. But first and foremost, let me take this opportunity to welcome you both to the podcast.
Thank you, sir. And if it's going to be as much fun as the last 2 minutes was, I'll be on here a little more often, I hate to tell you.
Oh, I hope you will, James, because this is going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, we were originally going to have Matt Emch join us, but unfortunately Matt's schedule was not available here tonight. So he unfortunately kind of dissed out on us at the last moment, but that's okay. We wish Matt the best, and we will talk to him soon. He's our high school football expert and college football expert. Matt is a YSU Penguin by education and heart, and on the field, James, he played for Jim Tressel back in the day, winning national titles. Give you a little background about my high school football partner.
Fun. Hey, man, I'm not going to say how many years ago that was now, just because, well, I don't want to.
I'm old. It's all right. You can say that.
Well,
I'm that old. Trust me.
I mean, I don't want to call you Santa, but you know.
I don't want to call you Santa.
No, I am old. I admit it. I don't care. Once you hit 50, you realize you're just freaking old. It doesn't matter no more. Enjoy it.
Oh,
when you're 40, you're thinking, well, I'm kind of getting old. And then when you hit 50, you just don't care no more. We go to hell. It doesn't matter. You're 15 years being kicked out the door anyway. So what's the difference? You know? Anyways, hey, let's get into that Steelers thing right on top of the bat. Obviously, we're talking about the end of the game with the Patriots, where the touchdown was originally called for the reception by Jesse James, and it was overturned on video. First and foremost, let's go to James's opinion about what happened and his reaction to that entire scenario.
Well, I'm going to say first, if it takes 8 replays and 2.5 minutes for one of the broadcasters, probably the brightest broadcaster in the current NFL game, and Tony Romo, to even notice, that ball might bobble a little bit. It might hit the ground a little bit. That should have been enough right there to say, how could you ever overturn the call? The main thing that really irks me is that based on the interpretation of the rule that they were using, you have to control the ball to the ground. Yeah, I get that. That's the way the rule is. I hate the rule. It's stupid. But yes, that is the rule. If that's what they're saying, then I completely agree with the call that's made. However, this is a bad interpretation of that rule because he catches the ball in the air. He then goes to a knee, pushes off of that foot and knee, reaches the ball forward. He is no longer in the process of making the catch as he goes to the ground. So I think they did enforce the rule correctly, but it should not have been with that enforcement of the rule. And I don't know why, but there's like nobody out there who even looks at it that way. It feels like everybody's saying, no, he was going to the ground, period. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's been no talk of that anywhere else, it feels like.
Anthony?
Yeah, I didn't watch it live, but I saw the replay, and I want to say this: the rule sucks. Period.
Well, yes,
it's an awful rule. I was always under the impression once the ball crosses the front portion of the goal line, that's a touchdown. That's it. He had control of the ball, and he was in the end zone. Like James said, they did interpret the rule as is written correctly, but they also want you to make a football move, and he did make a football move, and he scored, period. That was it. You know, the silver lining, if there is any, and I don't really believe in moral victories in sports. I think they suck, especially for a Steelers organization who's been so successful, is the chance to beat New England twice this year, very slim. You know you can beat them. You know you can beat them without AB. Hopefully AB gets back by the AFC title game, probably when they meet. And, I mean, Brady's looked human this year. And Gronk, it always seems, one year he's playing the AFC title game, and one year he's out with injury. So it's a let's wait and see. And, I mean, New England could be knocked off in the division round. It all depends on the matchups again. So I think, like James said, they interpreted it correctly the way it's written, but the rule stinks, and I disagree with the call.
Right, and it becomes, in that point, Anthony, it's a judgment call at that point of when he's maintained possession, and same thing. If it's a judgment call, precedent has always been you can't overturn a judgment call that was made on the field. So how they can overturn that, I mean, there's a lot of big-time question marks. I mean, you said about crossing the plane. That's only if you're a runner, not a receiver. I mean, that goes back to the Calvin Johnson rule, which, I mean, we're still having to talk about how many years later. So I really think this instance, more than any other one over the past 4 or 5 years, with Calvin Johnson a couple of times, especially, I really think this is going to be the straw that breaks Campbell's back, and finally get this replay thing figured out, get this actual catch rule figured out, because in the end, if common sense says it's a catch, if common sense says, look, I can see this on the replay, that looks like a catch, how can I overturn it? That's I think more than anything, I mean, we've had all the issues in the NFL already this year with, kneeling for the anthem and all that garbage. And this might be more than anything what is going to start turning people away when you can't enjoy a product on the field because of instant replay changing what looks like an obvious catch to being not one.
You know, I kind of fall in the same category of both of you. First of all, he caught the ball. Then he lunges over the goal line for the touchdown. However, if you read the rule and the rule is implied properly, which unfortunately it was, he did lose control of the ball coming down. Now, is it ridiculous? Yes. Is it wrong? It's a bad rule. It's an absolute atrocious rule that the NFL has. But I've been against this rule, how they interpret it, completions on replay for years. I mean, this is like you mentioned the Calvin Johnson rule, the Dez Bryant's catch in the playoffs. These are all type of things. And, the thing is, the NFL is, this is an owner's problem, not a player's problem or a coach's problem. The rule book, they're the ones who design the rule book and has the competition committee and make these decisions. So it's honest on the owners to make a change. And the more I've found out about what, this past week, and the reaction is the owners have no desire to change it, simply because they rather see maybe 2 to 5 plays a year that get this type of scenario than having a rule written where they think maybe every game there'll be a controversy. They said they could deal with 4 or 5 times a year, no matter what game it is in, versus having a rule that they believe that would be interpreted differently in every game on every catch. Now, I think, quite honestly, that's a huge cop-out. And But yeah, I think it's the right call on a bad rule. And that's the bottom line here. I think they got the call correct. I hate the rule, and I have hated the rule for years. I just think it takes away the spirit of the game. I mean, the game is about catching. And here's another problem I have with that rule to begin with is kind of what James was talking about. And both you and Anthony were talking about is, once you cross the goal line, is it a touchdown? Now, if it's a running play and there's a fumble that occurs after the ball, quote unquote, penetrates the goal line, it's a touchdown and there's no fumble. However, if a reception is made, it has to be completed which just absolutely makes no sense, because the same vein, if you make the catch with 2 feet in ground and the ball is stopped and it's in his possession and he goes out of bounds, it should be the same thing like as a fumble into the end zone once he crosses the goal line. In my opinion, you take away the spirit of the game about scoring, and that's what it's about. It's about putting the ball in the end zone, and when you take that away from teams, you create disenchantment with fans. And I think what James mentioned is something that the NFL really seriously have to take a look at.
Tim, let me play devil's advocate for you real quick. What was the very first thing that you said regarding the catch or no catch? You said he caught the ball, correct?
What made the catch? Yes.
He made the catch. Okay.
I agree with that.
When he made the catch, was he standing or was he falling?
No. He was in the process of going down.
Okay.
He was on his ground. He was on his knees.
Yeah.
And then he lunged forward across the goal line.
See, and that's where my judgment call, I saw it differently, that he was still on 2 feet. He then went to a knee to reach forward, and that's where same thing. A ref on the field is going to have to make that judgment at the time. Now you're going to tell me that the officials in the booth can then try to go and judgmentally say that, well, yeah, he actually wasn't standing like we thought originally. He was actually going to the ground originally. Now we're going to apply a different rule.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, because I thought the final call is made by the official on the field when he looks at the video.
I don't think
so. Not anymore.
That changed this year, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the.
It may have. I've always thought that's the reason why they have the video on the sideline, and the head official goes over and makes a ruling as he examines the video.
I believe it's the person in the booth now this year.
Yes,
it may be.
In fact, it might just be
really
one person who does it for like all the NFL games all at once, kind of like what the NHL system has been for the last couple of years.
Right, and that's how Major League Baseball is too.
Yep.
With their decisions, that comes out of New York also. So it very well possible, I mean, I don't know why then the head official needs to look at the video if someone from New York is making a decision.
From what I heard during a Broncos game a couple weeks ago when they had a review, the referee on the field watches video to understand why the call is being what it is. So he has a clear understanding of what it will be.
And also, I think to be able to explain to the guy doing the reviewing in New York of, hey, this is what we called, this is what we saw here, rewind it to that. And they kind of work together, it sounds like. But in the end, it is the guy in New York or wherever who's making the or in the booth making the call. Right.
It's, the guy's not watching the game every single play, but, hey, let's make him make a call, which the NFL has not made much sense this year. So.
Well, no, I mean, the NFL itself, its product has made a lot of, I think, errors over the last 10 years are catching up to them. And in the process of leaves them down this road where they have these instances that really challenges fans and their belief in a fair system. Look, it was not a conspiracy. I know that.
No,
I love the fans that love. Are huge. This is a conspiracy, because of the Patriots. The NFL don't want the Patriots to lose. Wasn't it the Patriots owner who hated
Goodell?
Hated Goodell the most a year ago because he lost his first round draft pick and his quarterback for 4 games, and and now this year he's like buddy with them because the call went their way.
No.
I mean, I find that kind of kind of ridiculous and counterproductive of the conspiracy theory.
Tim,
But,
90% of
look,
the
I think
90% of the fans who say conspiracy theory that the Patriots are getting, the benefit of the doubt here, or whatever you want to call it. 90% of those fans can't even spell Patriots. So
Yep.
we'll leave it at that.
Yep. He's right there.
Don't talk about the Steelers fans that way. You're a Steelers fan.
Stillers. Stillas.
I love it.
Yins don't know about the Stillas? Come on. Take it downtown, get some bananas.
I will be there next week, actually.
I tell you what.
Good call.
I will
really?
Be there. Yes, I will be there in section 523.
Bundle up and take your binoculars.
What, Tim?
So how did you end up going to the Steelers game?
Well, my mom has noted what to buy my cousin for Christmas, and he's always wanted to go to a Browns Steelers game. Well, I happened to be the lucky one off that day, so it falls on me to go see two teams in 20-degree weather at the top of Heinz Field I don't care about.
One of which is winless.
Yes.
And most likely will be. However, I do believe this week
Tim.
they have the.
I disagree with you.
However, I was going to say, this week I think is their best opportunity to win a game.
I think the Browns win this
Bears
week.
are very beatable, and I do believe this weekend, will give them another opportunity to win. Of course, I said that against the Packers, and they went to overtime and lost. And I said that against. And they went to overtime and lost. So, well, no, I knew they couldn't beat the Ravens.
I knew they couldn't beat the Ravens.
It's a divisional game. Come on, those are two easy wins every year for every team in the division. I mean, I can't remember the last time they actually defeated a divisional foe.
Wasn't the Bengals a couple?
You know
years
what
ago?
though? It could have been. I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Too long into the memory bank.
It's a baseball mentality when it comes to the Browns. Is like every at bat. Once the bat's over, you forget about it and move on. It's kind of a poker's attitude too. Once I play the hand, I forget about it. People come up to me and ask me, "Why did you do that? And what hand are you talking about?" I don't remember. I just have a short-term memory problem nowadays, and I blame it all on everything else.
It's almost baseball season. It's almost baseball season.
It is. We're like 100 days from opening day.
Yeah,
we're less than 100
58 days from. Yeah, I think it's 99 days today to opening day, and 57 days to start of the training camp. So you're headed out to
Arizona. I am. We're going out in early March for a couple of days to Goodyear to see spring training and see yonder Alonzo. He'll save us.
Well, you know what? I mean,
and Melvin Upton Jr.
Quite on. Santana striking out from the right side of the plate no more.
No, we won't. But how long? Oh God! And that one-handed down to one knee swing that he waves in the air like a oh God! But in his defense, he wasn't. He wasn't.
You know what? Here's the truth about Santana. Real quickly, here's the thing about Santana. I love the guy in a sense. I think he always gave his best effort. I think he is what he is, about a 260 hitter at best.
Well,
he'll 5 RBIs and hit about 25 home runs. And not necessarily hit a home run when you most needed it or when it is most opportune time in a ball game. But I don't, I'm disappointed that he's gone, but in the same vein, I'm so used to in baseball. Players move on all the time, and I can't blame a guy. You get a $60 million contract in front of you, and your home team is offering you a $36 million contract. That's a pretty easy decision in my mind.
What would you say, Tim?
Even I can do that one.
What would you say to having Joe Buck's husband in left field for you this year?
Who are you talking about?
Well, from what I've been reading, if the Indians were to package Salazar to the Cubs, Kyle Schwarber is the main piece the Indians want in return.
Who?
Kyle Schwarber.
Oh, Schwarber.
Kyle Schwarber or Ian Happ?
I want Happ.
I do too.
I think the Indians would hold out for half. That's just my opinion. I have nothing against Schwarber. I just think Schwarber's the same thing as Santana. A guy's going to hit 250, 260 at best and hit a lot of home runs. Can't steal bases. At least Santana could get on base and run.
Cubs 2 years ago, I'll take him. If he wants to hit 700 and play outstanding defense when he's in there in left field, I'll take it.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. I don't know what they're going to do there. Go ahead.
It's incredible. It's incredible that hitting 260 though is going to get you those kind of numbers and that kind of incredible. Can I be right on a math question 1 out of 4 times and go make $35 million, please? Like,
I know.
I mean, I don't. I don't think anybody on the Pirates was hitting over 300 at the end of the year, and if so, it was like Marte at 301. I mean, come on, it's. Those days of having your 300 every year, those days are gone.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Especially with line.
You know what? The game has changed because it is, kind of like what, Elzano they brought in, Yolander, was it Elzano? I'm saying it wrong, but Elzano. Yeah, you said it right.
Didn't realize it was Friday night already, Tim.
I know. Hey, get used to it, my friend. Get used to it. But anyways, what I was going to you know what? He changed his swing to get an uppercut swing to get home runs. He hit 28 this past year. His previous high was 9. This is a trend in Major League Baseball. This is going not just with these ball players, but all over. That's why you see so many swings and misses now than ever before. And devalued when you look at teams today. You don't find – that's just like last year when Edwin Encarnacion came to the Indians, is because no one else was willing to pay him that money. And that's just the way it works in baseball now. The home run has been devalued because there have been so many of them in the last 2 years. And you don't necessarily see the value for the player that you once did, for the Mark McGwires and the Albert Bells and you name the homer, Jim Thome, those type of players. You're not going to find that because the game has changed. Strikeouts are devalued. You can strike out 125, 150 times and it's no big deal. You can be, you could be Aaron Judge, who sets a new record for strikeouts in consecutive games and get a raise. That's just the way the game has changed. It's an amazing thing when you look at it. But you and I used to talk about Santana is when a runner was second base and you needed him to advance a runner with 1 out, he almost always struck out. It seemed that way, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it did.
And I'm not really knocking on him. That's just as the game has changed. The value of moving runners and the value of putting the ball in play is just not as high as it once was.
Will somebody bunt once?
Please? Thank you. I've been screaming about a bunt for years. Just move the guy over.
Or especially when you got that lefty and you have 4 infielders all to the right side of second base, just put it down. You mean you can get it back for a hit?
We said that.
I mean, you can weigh as much as all 3 of us combined, and you could get a bunt single with that infield.
Tim, how long have you and I
been saying
that?
Oh yeah, you just put the ball in play. You just understand where you need to put it, and that's one thing I'll give Santana credit for. Is that actually he has laid down bunts when they had that shift on him many times, and then they kind of convinced him that it wasn't worth doing. It is what it is. They'd rather see a 3-run homer than moving runners. I don't get it, but it is what it is. I wish him well. I think the Phillies got a good player for the next 3 years, and they had the money to spend. That's all it takes is one team to make that type of offer, and you're going to lose a player. That's just the way it works. That's just like the Pirates right now. They have to trade him. They have no choice but to trade him. They're not going to sign him next year. It very well could happen.
I hope so.
I'm not saying it's in the work. I'm not saying it's in the works, but it could happen. I think the Pirates are absolutely the face of the team for the last 10 years. They have no choice for their future, but not to move him. They have to move him this year. James, your thoughts?
I mean, I think so too. Just for the way the franchise ends up working and doing the best for the team, it's just always going to be difficult to say, this is I mean, quote unquote, the face of the franchise. But I mean, you could say the same thing when they had Neil Walker, a hometown boy, first rounder from right down the road at Pine Richland, and now they're going to get rid of your Pittsburgh boy. And a lot of people were not fans of that, but it was the right decision for the team. You couldn't pay a guy that much, and even with that too, I mean, baseball is so much more difficult because you have, as we have a guest trying to join us here.
That's quite all right. She's more than welcome.
It's very difficult to be able to do all this when you have a scenario of not having a salary cap, and you can have two different teams paying so much of a different amount. And then, you got a team who's willing to pay $30 million just to talk to a guy from Japan, where some other teams aren't able to pay that much for almost an entire staff for a year, for an entire roster.
Yeah, baseball has two salary caps. It has those who can afford to go over it and those who stay under it. And, you're talking about the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Cubs,
but the luxury tax, right? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, the luxury tax. But you know what that is? It's a salary cap. Deep down, that's what it is. You're just allowed to go over it like the NBA does. And if you do, you pay a tax. You pay a penalty. And those teams who can afford to do it consistently. I think the Yankees have paid, quote unquote, the tax the last 15 years, and they're going to continue to do it because they can. I believe the Dodgers still have the highest payroll in baseball. So, like I said, there's two levels of baseball. You have someone like the Astros who actually did the correct thing, 45 years ago, tear down their team to nothing and had a small payroll and build up their franchise. And, they were able to cash in and hit the mother load this past year and win the World Series. The Indians did the same thing a few years back, and look what they did. They went to the World Series, 2 years ago, and last year made the playoffs and had an opportunity to go back. And, their window of opportunity is probably going to close here within the next year or two. Exact same thing. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's just the way these market teams like, Cleveland and Pittsburgh and Minnesota and others have to work. They can't make 5-10-year runs. It's impossible. You have a window of opportunity about 3 to 5 years. And if you don't cash in, you have to cash in your chips and start all over again. It's just the way it works for smaller market teams. Fans have to adjust to that, especially if you're a Cleveland fan or a Pittsburgh fan or a Minnesota fan, or even the Marlins right now and what they're going through. That's a little different, but it's the same scenario there. They just don't know what they're doing. And long term, we'll see how it works out. It's not a surprise the rich get richer. Those who are in the middle class in Major League Baseball, stay the same and have to go through these cycles.
Yeah, it was very tough to see what the Yankees did a couple days ago with Stanton, and now they're being linked to Garrett Cole. And it's like Tim said, the rich get richer. It's And
again, I don't blame the Pirates for trying to trade Cole. It makes sense.
I don't either.
I mean, his value is at the highest level, and they're not going to re-sign him in 2 years.
Yep.
He's not, with his representation it's not going to happen. Yep. And I don't blame the Pirates for drafting him, bringing him to the major leagues, getting the most out of him. Yeah, he had I don't want to say a bad year, a down year.
He was hurt last year, wasn't he? He was hurt for a little bit.
Yeah, he was banged up, himself. Missed the start here and there. He wasn't his best. But I mean, here's the thing too, and the Pirates fans for the last 20 years have said it. Every time we get somebody good, of course, we trade them away, and exactly this because it's the right move. How many minor league players have we gotten over the years? The question to me ends up being, and the question that you end up hearing among all Pirates fans is, God, with all these minor league players that we've gotten, they're going to be really good. They're going to be really good.
Yep.
And then they go nowhere. So, I mean,
so that's
we've been waiting 20 years for these minor leaguers to turn into nothing. And that's where I think you get a really frustrated fan base that way.
Well, you're right, because that's the key. What you just mentioned is identifying the talent that you're getting back and believing that they are quality blue chip, prospects. I mean, let's, look at the Cleveland Indians. Like we just mentioned, Santana left. Santana was traded to the Indians
for Casey Blake, wasn't he?
Right. I was just gonna say Casey Blake from the Dodgers, and he spent 8 years with the Indians, at the major league level. Brantley, he was the key part of the trade. Actually, he was the last.
He was the last throw-in, yeah.
It was the last part of the trade for CC Sabathia when he was traded to Milwaukee. And, they didn't get they had a couple other players that kind of fizzled out with right. They never worked out, or they did their careers. And then, you have a Michael Brantley who, kind of blossomed into an all-star. So, you have to identify those players that you're getting back. That's the key. I mean, obviously, draft well, and you have to develop talents. I mean, baseball is more prevalent than ever because the draft you do today is not for the major league team in 2018. It's for your major league team in 2022. And that's the hardest part of the job in baseball, is to project these players, where they'll be. Derek Coles obviously was a no-brainer, and look where he's at right now. If you can get the Yankees, who have a superb, minor league system, there's some nice pluckings there that you can get. Like, for example, if you can get Sheffield out of that trade.
I heard Clint Frazier.
Yeah, Clint Frazier, yeah. Let's just say they ended up maybe trying to get both of them. That would be a phenomenal trade for the Yankees. They're two former Cleveland Indian prospects, but they have other players. They have a full farm system that's ready to be plucked. So, I mean, if you make the right moves, you can get some quality talent back. I think Clint Frazier would be a hit in Pittsburgh. I do too. He has a great personality, and he's a guy who, probably realistically could hit about 260, 270 and probably drive in maybe 30 home runs at minimum.
Yep. I agree with that.
For a full season. And so I think, long term, if he's part of any type of trade for Derek Coles to the Yankees, then I think you have to do it. I mean, I think a player like that you can actually use today at the major league level and build a team around. And, it's unfortunate, but that's the cycle of baseball. We've seen it so many times. You have such a small window of opportunity. That's what, as an Indian fan, losing Game 7 of the World Series is just so heartbreaking to get that close and not be able to close the door. And then in the same vein, the following year had the offensive season that they had, win 102 games, have 22 games winning streak, get into playoffs, have a 2-game lead against the Yankees and watch it fall apart. Those are heartbreaks, but that's what makes you watch sports, though.
That's right.
Let's be honest. I don't care. I mean, the thrill of victory is always the best, but part of sports is understanding that you're not always going to have the best of it. You may be the best team out there, but you may not always have the best of it. And let's face it, even the Steelers the last few years have had some great teams that haven't made it to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Well, and I was going to say that same thing. I mean, the only reason that we're still talking about a game that happened last Sunday is because of a little bit of controversy. That's going to keep us talking about it because that's how invested we are in it. So, thanks to everything for being just completely chaotic and giving us something to talk about.
Oh, so James, let me take a moment here and just talk to you for a second and talk about your background. Obviously, you're with Trib's. Trib Live High School Sports Network. You've been with them for a while. Just give our listeners here on Radio MVP a little background of yourself and how you and I teamed up this year.
When I was in college, I was part of a community sports outlet we called 360 Community Sports. It was about local athletes from the Lawrence County area where we were based, and athletes who had gone on to the college level, kind of a what are they doing now sort of thing. And we kind of spread off from there into more generic sports podcasts and eventually got ourselves into full fantasy mode as the 360 Sports Network. And with that, just carried that on for almost probably 7 or 8 years. And randomly, I got a call from a local broadcaster, the late, great Mark Shaws, saying, hey, you've been giving me great fantasy advice for the last couple of years. Love what you're doing. Have you ever considered doing broadcasting for a football game? I need somebody to work this Friday because Lee Moan, the guy who you mentioned earlier, he can't come this week. So I said, yeah, sure. What the heck? Did it, loved it. Ended up doing like 4 or 5 games with him that year and ended up getting hired by MSA Sports as a radio broadcaster that following year. MSA Sports, now the Trib Live High School Sports Network. This is now my 3rd full year with them. And sadly, it was tough shoes, impossible shoes to fill this past fall. With the passing of Mark suddenly over the summer, that I took over his role with WJST in Newcastle for the football games every Friday night. But we live with his honor, and now you and I have teamed up because you can't have one person go and step into his shoes for the basketball. It takes two of us to try to get to what he was able to bring on the court. So that's how we joined forces for KST for all Newcastle high school basketball games. And that's where you'll see us or hear us every Tuesday and Friday night pretty much now until the end of February, and hopefully even further for the Canes as they get on their stretch run. But now with the Trib Live Sports Network, I do pretty much everything in sports. I am apparently the expert in the competitive cheer championships.
Oh, really?
Well, because
I can't wait to talk about that.
So all right. So here, I'll give you the quick story on that one. So I end up getting, like we get our weekly email of what games they're doing this week, and I get my normal Tuesday, Friday basketball game, and then I see Saturday that I'm one of 3 people doing the competitive spirit championship, and I'm thinking, what the heck is this? So I go and I look. It's like, okay, it's cheerleading competition, essentially is what it is. And a minute 30 seconds or 2 minutes 30 seconds, I should say, of the cheerleaders going through their normal cheer routine of a cheer, a song, a cheer. Long story short, I go in there and just so happen to know a local coach. She graduated high school with me, so I called her and said, "All right, give me some terms, give me some phrases, give me something I can work with here." 2 hours later, after a 2-hour phone call with her, apparently I know more than the rest of the network combined, and now I'm getting called back every year to do it because I'm the one who knows what's going on and can tell a difference. I can tell a difference between a one man and a 2-man crew and a solo, and what's a back handspring versus a somersault, and what's legal and what's not. So that's, I guess, my claim to fame. But I've done basketball, I've done hockey, I've done football, lacrosse. Just about anything on the network. That's what I'm there for, I guess. And that, keeps me out of trouble. I'm going to be at a game on a Friday night anyway. I might as well go enjoy it and maybe make some money while we're at it. Right. And that's the fun way about it.
There's nothing wrong with that. This is actually my 3rd time with this network. I, back around 2000, I want to say, It was called Nauticom.
Yes.
And at that time, they expanded out of Western Pennsylvania to Ohio, I think California and Georgia, a few other. They had this big aspiration of making this huge high school network for the entire country. And we got involved at the station I was at. So we ended up being part of that for both high school, I think football for sure, maybe basketball too. I don't remember. And then, of course, unfortunately, Nauticom had their financial problems and retreated out of the expanded states that they were in. Western Pennsylvania became MSA. And as the years went by, obviously I actually ended up over in Meadville and Franklin area for about 5-6 years, but they were not part of any type of internet broadcast or rebroadcast of any game. So they were not in that networks with District 10. So when Mark had his stroke a few years back, I happened to be in between jobs and gigs and doing high school sports games. And I actually got a call from Jim Shields, I believe, or I got an email from Jim Shields asking me if I was still available. And I said, yes. And then next thing I know, I got an email from KST. And that's when they ended up, asking me if I was still available and when I'd be willing to come in and help them out in this situation. And that's when I filled in for Mark. Unfortunately, in a sense, the first time during high school football and worked with Lee that year. And then Mark joined us late in that season. And of course, now here we are, both filling the shoes of Mark Schoss, who's we did a tribute to him here on Radio MVP a few months ago, after really right in the fall. Some clips of he and I doing a game together. It was quite fun. And so those who are trying to find out who Mark Schoss is, go back in September, maybe early September on our webpage, Radio MVP, and look at that. You'll find one that says Sashi on it. And that's the one you want to
Shazzy.
Listen, like I always says, he's a little sour, but he's also a sweet guy, a good guy. And a little salty at times, but that's what it made Mark. And it was a lot of fun. But anyways, so here I am back over in Western PA doing high school basketball for the first time. about 4 years, and it's wonderful to be doing basketball again. And here we are with now Trib Live. So my third indication or time around with this network with 3 different.
Yeah, same network, new name, doesn't matter. Still a chance to. What I really like about what Dotacom, MSA, now Trib Live has been able to do is the fact we can go back and listen at any time. I mean, obviously we can do that with podcasts and all that as well, but it's just fun for these young athletes. I mean, you hear, yeah, we're on the radio, yeah, but we're on TV. Even the games that are on TV, unless you go and physically DVR record it, you're not going to see them again. Something like this, you can go back and even the games that we live video stream. Trib Live is doing their first 2 basketball video streams tomorrow night down at Fox Chapel for a couple of games. So same thing, you can go and watch or listen back to it anytime you want. So that's what we really like about it. And, it really allows us to also network in that regard too, because same way, we met 2 years ago when you were doing those
Correct.
games and, really didn't think of it. Hey, how you doing? And 2 years like, oh yeah, Tim, I remember him. Yeah, of course. Hey, let's get things going. And it's just, kind of that nicety of, knowing what's going on, knowing who's out there and being able to bring everything together.
Yeah, I mean, I look forward to maybe talking to some of those who are involved with Trib Live here in the future, and have them come on the podcast and talk about the history of that, and also just making some contacts. And then I haven't talked to anybody over there for many years. Matter of fact, when there was the Ohio Nauticom type thing, oh God, now I'm blanking on the name, showing my age again. Leroy. The NFL player from the Browns, the Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know him too. I can't think of it. Anyways, he was he left the Cleveland station to take over the internet broadcast for Ohio over here. And I met him a few times. He's now over in Phoenix. I should just look it up on my phone, but I'm just too lazy to do that. So, screw that. Hey,
I
everybody knows
appreciate the
me
honesty.
from my. Oh, here's one thing you'll get with me, and this is when I did high school sports here for 20 years ago. I'm a no bullshitter. I tell you straight out what's going on and what I believe and what I'm thinking. If I make a mistake, so be it. I'll call me out on it. I could care less. And
he's the anti.
That's what I love about doing this.
Oh,
and I
don't like the guy.
We'll get into that.
Couldn't tell.
Another day. Let's put it this way. One thing you'll find out from me is I won't steal someone else's information and report it as my own. I will definitely give credit where credit is due. I will never ever say, "Oh, such and such pitcher a 5-year contract, such and put it out as I broke the story." That will never happen. I will always give credit to those who actually did the work.
You're saying there's integrity still in the media? Wait a minute, what?
I'm not. You know what? I have a lot of friends who actually cover college and pro sports. And matter of fact, I keep threatening to bring them on. I haven't done it yet, but Eric Bolin, who probably never has listened to this yet, and probably only will once in his lifetime when he's on, he's going to be on here soon. It's just a matter of me making a contact. He actually covers the Yankees, so he was my former partner in crime over in Ohio when we did high school sports together, and talked sports back about 20 years ago. Believe it or not, 2 years ago now. It's a long time ago. That's all I know. Enough of me daydreaming about the past. Talk to me about our Penguins. I know you had some breaking news coming into tonight.
My sources have confirmed that offensive coordinator, much maligned offensive coordinator between the fans, Shane Montgomery, has left. Rumor has it he's accepted a job at a Division I university. I cannot confirm which university that is, but multiple sources are confirming that he is gone. So in a span of 2 days, the offensive and defensive coordinators are gone, and so when we thought we just had to replace a quarterback and some offensive linemen, we got to replace a whole lot more. Replacing Montgomery could be an easy task, or it could be a deeper problem than that. I think this year is going to be a lot better. I just think it's going to be a whole heck of a lot better, although once again, the Missouri Valley Conference has decided to screw us with the scheduling, as the November schedule is at North Dakota State, home versus Northern Iowa, and at Illinois State. I don't know what we did to the conference to deserve that once again. The good news is we don't play Missouri State, so we don't get a guaranteed win. The other bad thing about the stupid scheduling is our bye week is right after mighty Valparaiso. Explain that to me. Once again, it's the third straight year.
65-0 ball game, huh?
Yeah, so after we play Butler, West Virginia, and Valpo, we need a week off. If the only good news is we get a week off before we go to Western Illinois to begin conference play. Take it for what it's worth. You know, I know Bo doesn't really care about it, but I'd rather have a bye week after, say, South Dakota State, and my water in Valparaiso. But now we got to replace 2 coordinators and a quarterback. So it's going to be a interesting off season, to say the least.
I'm kind of excited about the change. I mean,
I think we needed it.
You know what? I think changes sometimes, and especially at Youngstown State level, it's going to happen. You know, obviously coaches get opportunities to move on, and you know, let's be honest, they can double, triple their pay, and I totally get it. And you know, Pelini moving on is not a shock. Carl's a good guy. I used to interview him when he coached the Austintown Fish Falcons back in the day, and good man. And I think he's you know, trying to rebuild his career, and he has that and you know, he can be successful. I know he is. He's a very intense guy at times, and I think he knows his football. The Pelinis do. And I think Bo is going to continue to lead the Penguins in the right direction. I think him having a chance now to the offense and what the direction goes will be really, you know, something to watch and see how it does. Because look, you know, he decided to keep, you know, Shane Montgomery on when he became the head coach at Youngstown. So I think this is an opportunity for him to maybe put his blueprints on what type of a offense that he wants to run versus the one that he inherited.
I get the feeling, and this is just my gut feeling, I think we'll see somebody with Nebraska ties to Bo, of a spread offense, a quarterback that can run around a little bit, not necessarily a run a quarterback 20, 25 times a game, but I do think we'll see more of the spread offense. As for defensive coordinator, it's going to be Bo's system. So that's not going to affect. The only thing you're going to miss from Carl is the intensity and, you know, the really understanding of Bo's system. I'd love to see Richard McNutt be promoted. I think he's a rising star. I think he is an absolute rising star.
And if anybody's going to replace Pelini someday, it very well could be McNutt.
I think he
it wouldn't shock me. Wouldn't shock me at all. Yeah, he is intense about football. I mean, he was that way when he came with Bo from Nebraska, and he's about a guy. He's on a mission.
Yes.
You know, and whatever he's doing, he's 100% in. And you know, he never thought he would leave Lincoln, Nebraska, and he did.
Yeah, let's not.
So it tells you everything you need to know.
And off the field, he's a great guy. I've had some interactions with him. And my first interaction with him came last year after the national championship game, and he apologized to me. He said, "I'm sorry we failed you." And I said, "We just went 12-4 on one of the greatest runs this program's ever had. You have nothing to apologize about." He said, "We failed fans like you down in Winter, Texas, put on that display." And I said, "No, we just got beat up by a better team." But that's just kind of coach she is. You know, he expected the job he's done. You know, if you consider just 2014 was Eric Wolford's last year here, and our defense was bottom of the conference. I mean, it was terrible. I know, Tim, you can attest to how many deep balls we gave up. And now this secondary for the third year in a row has led the country in pass defense just over 140 a game. That's incredible. I mean, that's incredible considering, we've seen Carson Wentz and Easton Stick and Tyrell Christian and Chris Streveler. We've played Pitt and Skylar Howard at West Virginia. Now we're going to play Will Greer next year. We played Shore from James Madison. We've played a lot of good passing teams, and we shut them down. So I would love to see McNutt be promoted. I have the utmost faith in Bo. It's not going to be a shock if he promotes somebody on the defensive side. It could be Stoops, who had the job in Bo's first year here.
Right.
I think it'll be a little more interesting to see what we do offensively. Part of me says that Bo's going to try to bring in a Division I transfer at quarterback to run his system. Or we'll just have to go with the guys on the roster and hope to God that the injury bug doesn't bite us again like it did last year. And we realize
the previous 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, and what we realize is the good thing is we got most of our defense coming back that was young. We got our special teams back, and we got two of the best backs in the country, in all the country, in Tevin McCaster and Christian Turner and Joe Alessi. So you got three studs back, and if you run the football well and you stop the run, you're going to win many games. So the good thing is we don't have 5 games in 5 weeks against top 5 teams. The bad news is you better be in playoff position going into November, or you're going to be in a world of hurt trying to go to Fargo and Normal.
Jim Tressel used to say pretenders play in October and
November they're for contenders.
November. Yes. Yeah, and that's exactly
I
it.
do know.
Hey, James, who's your college team that you follow?
I am a Penn State graduate, so that's my top pick is the Nittany Lions, and man, they had a heck of a recruiting day.
Yes, they
did. Yesterday.
Yes, they did.
The whole Micah Parsons thing. I mean, with Penn State, decommits, wants to look elsewhere. Ohio State's a big part of it. Recruiting violations, they have to stop recruiting him. Pretty much send the slam dunk back to Penn State. He's going to be a beast really, really quickly. And hey, I got to give a shout out too. There's a kid, a wide receiver from, I believe he's from the New Jersey, by the name of Jahan Dotson. So, here's where I'm now mad that Penn State doesn't have names on the back of their jerseys. So, hey, we'll take it. But I'm really excited about their class, and I just hope that I'm actually excited that they have a new offensive coordinator, too, coming in, because there were lots of times this past year that I did not agree with some of the play calls that Joe Moorhead was calling. So I'm anxious to see what they pull out with there and how they use Tommy Stevens. And I'll tell you what, Saquon Barkley going away, Miles Sanders might be better.
Wow.
This kid, Miles Sanders, everything is saying he's ready for it. He should be just as good, if not better, than what Saquon Barkley was this year. The kid's a freak athlete. He played at local Woodland Hills around here in Western PA.
That's a good program.
It's a great program. You're right. Coach Novak been there forever. 300 wins as a football coach there. You see, as soon as he leaves, this is his first year not there, and all of a sudden they're not doing a great job as a program this year for his first year without. But nonetheless, keep your eye on Miles Sanders. He's going to get that starting job, assuming Barkley does go pro, which I think we all know is going to happen. Sanders is going to get that job, and I think it's going to be really fun to watch what this kid can do.
Here's a fun fact. In December of 2015, when YSU was looking for a new or December of 14, wasn't it, Tim? When they hired Bo?
Yes.
14,
December of 14, Joe Moorhead was the favorite and the front runner to get the Youngstown State job until Bo was available.
How would you I mean, is he going to be the coach that's going to run the offense while being a head coach? Because obviously we know that doesn't.
Yeah, see, that would have been a really
work.
interesting thing. I know he applied for it and really wanted it after Haycock left, and then that job went to Eric Wolford, and then he applied for it again. I wasn't thrilled about it at the time. I know I didn't know Tim at this point. I always kept hope for Bo Pelini. I just thought it made way too much sense. I'll tell you a name who I wanted from the start. I wanted Bob Davie. I just thought it was a home run hire. I thought, he did all he could at Nebraska or New Mexico and Notre Dame. He learned from his mistakes. It's a smaller job. It's coming back home. I thought Bob Davie could have done a hell of a job. When Nebraska fired Bo, I just said it's over. If anybody in that athletic department has any sense, which I know they do, it was a done deal. I would have liked Joe Moorhead. I thought he would have done a good job. Coming from Fordham to Youngstown State, that's a big jump. That's like, trying to equate it going from Akron to Penn State. It's a huge jump. Fordham was good under Joe Moorhead. I didn't know a lot about him, so I couldn't, say I think we would have made the national championship game? Probably not. Do I think we would have been better on offense? Probably. I guess it's a catch-22. Our defense, our defense wouldn't be a top 5 defense in the country, but the offense would have been better. So you never know. It's tough. He had a little more northeastern recruiting base. Bo was more of a national brand. Moorhead didn't have the attitude problems and the people detracting him. So it would have been tough to tell how he would have done here.
Oh, and then look at what Lane Kiffin's now doing at Florida Atlantic, and he'll only be there for 2 years before somebody else offers him a job. He puts up another year, even half as good as what he did this past year. So that's the other thing too. When you get into a scenario like that on a the FCS level or the not Power 5 conference, you get a guy who was sought after, maybe a former head coach or a top coordinator at the big time college programs. If they go and take a head coaching job and do anything even remotely solid there in their first couple of years, one of these big programs is going to go and throw a whole bunch of cash their way. What's the ridiculous number? Like 45 out of the 50 states have the top paid employee in the state is a coach at a university there. I think the universities in the end are almost going to be able to offer more money, it seems, than some of the professional programs. And that's, that's just a whole nother can of worms. So the coaching carousels where they can go and leave and get their own money, where the recruits can't do anything and they're forced then to stay. There's a lot of issues with that too. That's got to be dealt with across the course of the time as well. But at the same time too, as long as programs are making money, as long as NCAA is making money, they're not going to care, are they?
Yeah, it would have been. I mean, the contract signed this offseason with Jimbo Fisher, $75 million. I mean, good God. It was just absolutely incredible to see what he got and what Lane Kiffin got from FAU and Willie Taggart got to leave Oregon from to go to Florida State. So it's just mind-boggling the contracts these schools are throwing at these guys.
And where does it end, too? I guess that's the question. It's like a baseball contract. There is no limit. It's really how much they can pay whatever they want. They can go some school, if they really wanted to, could go and pay $50 million to go get Lane Kiffin if they wanted to. Nobody could stop them.
Yeah, and whenever I see these coaches get 10-year deals, I just laugh. I mean, it always seems to me when these coaches sign 10-year deals, they're gone within the next year or two. I mean, Notre Dame gave Charlie Weis an extension after 5 games his first year for 10 years. They just finished paying him last year, for God's sakes.
Well, and it's the Mets, Bobby Bonilla. They're still paying Bobby Bonilla
every Christmas
20-some years later. It's you're right. And where's this money coming from?
Yeah, I mean, and And you got to think the schools like Florida State and Texas A&M, they're in these mega conferences with these ACC network and SEC network. I mean, it's only going to grow. It's only going to grow, and it's incredible. But then you realize how a school like Texas A&M can throw $75 million at a guy at their top choice and get him, and then a school in Tennessee who has a better football history that can probably throw just around as much money as A&M can, gets turned down by guys from Duke, NC State, and Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
It's you know, you're right. Is when will it end? I mean, you got to think the contracts in 5 to 7 years for new head coaches are going to be just out of this world. I mean, Jimbo's Fishers could look minute in a couple years.
Yeah, and I think they're going to. I think you're going to start seeing more of those. And with that too, talk about how ridiculous social media has turned into with all sports. And just look at that Tennessee scenario. They hire a coach and then they have to retract it because of a Twitter outrage based on who they hired because there might have been connections with us. Yeah, things that have been found not to be true.
Yeah, and if I told Tennessee fans that in 2007 Rutgers was 1 win away from playing for the national championship, they would take that in a heartbeat right now, because right now their program's irrelevant. He had Rutgers, a top 5 program in the country. Rutgers.
I mean, it is. It's laughable when you think about it.
It is laughable.
And I love that they're not going to get any other opportunities now. Nobody's going to want to take that job.
No. Who would? I mean,
yeah.
Coaches from Duke, Purdue, and NC State turned you down.
Maybe we should send in our application. What do you think?
I would send in my application and say, I will work $15 a game, and I can do the same crap Butch Jones did. And the champions of – I can go out there every Tuesday and say, well, this is our champion of life building block. But it was when John Wooden did it, because John Wooden's winning 70-some games in a row. It's incredible to me how Tennessee can't get it right. You're Tennessee. You're not Tennessee's Tech.
You're a big name program. You're supposed to be one of the top programs, supposedly, and I don't know. I'm not. It is what it is. They're gonna. People are set in their ways, I guess, and that's how.
Especially that's how Tennessee fans.
Well, and it's just it. While we're on the topic of college football, I mean, can we talk about how college football, they tried to make the championship more relevant by having this Final Four, and I personally actually think